Hi everyone, and welcome to the Dynamics 365 practice show. Today, really interesting recording for you. I speak to Johan Adenmark and Anton. Listen, I'm not even going to try and pronounce Anton's last name. You know, it's got a zero with some dots over it and looks very fancy. These guys are amazing. They're from Sweden. We talked about, Business Central, but think of that's the software that their practice is focused around, but I think they've got some unique insights in the way of running a modern practice. For 7 years, they've been working on a model of rapid repeatability, giving customers a price up front and producing results, in some cases, under a week. I think there's a lot that a modern practice, working with Microsoft Business Apps, can learn from the discussion with these two gentlemen. I thoroughly enjoyed the interview. I learned heaps myself, but I'll let you be the judge. Before we go there though, I just want to talk to you about field service. In particular, a company I work with called MapTasker, they've got this ISV solution called Field Engineer for Dynamics 365. It's built specifically for companies that run field engineers. It allows them to gain access to detailed geospatial data from other internal systems. I especially like the opportunity it creates to bring advanced geospatial data from platforms like Esri, ArcGIS straight into Dynamics 365. I've done many projects that required Esri integration over my career, and MapTasker would have made the job a whole lot easier. MapTasker's Field Engineer for Dynamics 365 not only allows you to access data from platforms like Esri and ArcGIS, but it writes back to it. Now that's critically important, that information can be pumped back into ArcGIS. And of course that completes the circle of data collection in the field, making it reportable, usable inside the organization. If you want to get a demo of their product, go to maptasker.com, check it out, and see if it's a right fit for you. Anyhow, let's get on with the show. Remember, full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/150. Johan and Anton, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, it's good to have you on air after, hearing about your business. I've not met either of you in person, but I hear that you're doing amazing things in the space of Business Central up there in Sweden. So I thought I'd get you on the show today and we could have a little discussion. But before we get underway, Johan, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself and where you live and where you play when you're not at work?
Well, I live in the southern parts of Sweden. I actually have a situation where I live in a small city called Växjö and another one called Helsingborg, and shifting between them. I got into Navision or NAV business about 20 years ago. I spent a lot of time on this, but in my free time, I'm a soccer coach.
Wow, okay.
My son's team, turning 15 now, so it's exciting.
Wow, yeah, I bet. And Anton, what about you?
I live in Stockholm, and I tend to spend a lot of time when I'm not working in the Stockholm archipelago, which is the small islands right outside Stockholm, where you can do anything from fishing. I love all kinds of water sports, basically everything that involves a sail.
Yep, nice.
So kite surfing, windsurfing. I've been competitive sailboat racing, more like 40 footers before.
Wow.
It involves a little bit too much gear now, so I prefer using a kite. But yeah, that's what I want to spend my time on.
Excellent. So you're both based in Sweden and you're in the same company, NAB. How did you guys end up meeting? Anton, perhaps you could answer.
Yeah, so before I started working in NAB Solutions, I were in university, and when you're studying, you like some extra money. So then I worked in a petrol station in the archipelago. One day, I wouldn't say elderly man, but someone who was definitely older than I were, came alone with his sailboat, and he was very talkative and stayed for a little bit too long. So after a while, I tried to tell him that you can't take up a spot on the dock for this long. This ended up in he offering me a job at NAB Solutions, and that was a Saturday, and basically a week later, I started working at NAB.
Wow, that's incredible. So was that Johan that you were talking to or somebody else?
No, that was somebody else. I'm not that old. No, but the background to this is that we started up working with Navision about 20 years ago, and it was three of us, two from the southern parts of Sweden, and one guy was a little bit older than us from Stockholm.
Okay.
And then it was different companies and change was had some.
Mm-hmm.
But to make a long story short, NAB was started 2001, and it says the abbreviation is Network and Business Solutions. So we were like 12 people, office in Växjö in the southern parts of Sweden, and a small office in Stockholm. And we did, as the name implies, everything.
Wow.
So we had Navision, we had a data center, we were selling hardware, everything. And as time went by, we tried to be more focused. And from 2010, we got focused on Vision or Dynamics NAV, as it was called.
Yeah.
By then, we saw Azure was coming, so we sold the whole infrastructure part of the company.
Okay.
And then I think it's about 7 years ago, got engaged by Microsoft in a program called Road to Repeatability.
Okay.
And it was something to make partners more vertical and more repeatable in the way to deliver ERP systems. And one of the first thing they told us is we have to get new generation of salespeople who were younger, thinking in new ways, which made me kind of disappointed because I thought I was finally old enough to have enough credibility to sell ERP. And all of a sudden I was too old. So I was talking to the other people in the company and said, we have to find a young person, creative, that could be our new salesperson. And then a week later or something, Lars is his name, the guy with the boat, he called me up and said, I met the guy here. I think he's the one you're looking for. So I think we have the job interview the week after. And Anton and I had a good interview. It was very different from a lot of other interviews I had, but
how was it different?
Well, it was really hard.
I explained I think I explained sailing to you.
Yeah, and I could not really explain exactly what Anton was supposed to do, but I asked him to explain complicated things about sailing. Then I realized he would be absolutely able to explain other complicated things.
Yeah. Makes sense. That's so cool. Such a good story. You mentioned there the road to repeatability. You know, the program that Microsoft was running 7 years ago. I've not come across this before. What else can you tell me about this program? What were the kind of any other key takeaways that 7 years later is still stuck with you?
I think it was a program where partners selected were willing to share experiences and findings, trying new ways to deliver. And it's very fun that we still have a good relationship between all the partners that were in that program 7 years later.
Wow.
And we meet at conferences, we talk, we still try to share. So yeah, it was, I think, the best Microsoft program I ever been to.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
But one of the interesting parts, I think, with that program, comparing it to the new ones, is that it was so collaborative just because there were no documentation, there were no best practices. There were a few pioneers, people with some ideas of how we should do it, but basically there were just a few guidelines. You should maybe try this and you should avoid that. But otherwise, no one had did this before, and it was just trial and error, which meant that we had so much to gain from collaborating with the other guys, because then everyone didn't need to try out the same mistakes.
So good. Tell me, why did they recommend you go out and hire a new generation of salespeople? Why was that one of the kind of things that you obviously took on board and decided needed to be done?
The traditional way of selling was that you should go visit the customer, you should ask them a lot of questions, and there was a sales methodology that everybody's been working with for many, many years. And the average sales cycle was somewhere between a year and 2 years.
Wow,
So in the program, it's a guy called Mark Stoit. He was thinking about how can we change this? And it was more about realizing that the customer is not making rational decisions, because they make their decisions based on feelings. And instead of asking a lot of questions to the customer, we should let the customer ask us questions.
Right.
And we try to change everything around, and the buyer behavior has changed. There's a lot of information available on internet. So we try to provide more information on the website. In the old school of selling, the price was something that you really wanted to wait and tell the customer far into the sales cycle.
Yep.
Try to reverse it and tell this is the price right away.
Wow.
And that means that in some scenarios, you might be selling your stuff a little bit too cheap. And in some cases, the customer realizes it's too expensive.
Yes.
But if it's too expensive, they might as well know it right away.
Yeah. And therefore you can finish a conversation, not carry on if they don't have the capacity to purchase.
And
I like it.
And if it's a little bit too cheap, it doesn't really matter, because if we can change the sales cycle to a week, we can do a lot more business.
Yeah.
And
wow.
we also try to change the way we instead of visiting the customer, we try to do all the sales over phone.
Right.
And using modern technology to show the application right away when we talk to the customer, to give them, this is how it looks like. And it actually worked very well. So after, I think, 6 months of trying this out, we made our first deals in a week. And then we also changed the way we implemented. So a small customer we could have live within a week from the first call. And that was kind of a game changer of how we used to sell and implement this. And the reason why they wanted us to hire new salespeople and younger salespeople is that it would be harder to change behavior on an old salesperson who'd been working with the old way than just getting a new one and saying this is the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, interesting. It totally makes sense. As in, I like that whole idea there of, you tried it for 6 months, and then, you had that one deal that was less than a week from start to finish, fully validating, the process. I assume that some of the other deals through that period took a bit longer than that, but you obviously validated down to a week. And I love that concept of using, things like nowadays it's probably Microsoft Teams to actually do that. I assume were you kind of doing a face-to-face with video cam and then being able to do a bit of demo live that way as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man, This is good. This is good stuff. And I listen, I don't know that a lot of partners are using that technique even today. I could be wrong, but that's a very interesting model.
What this also creates is it kind of lowers the bar quite a lot. Like if they speak to someone else and they tell them, okay, let's do some workshops, and we plan for the first meeting in 2 weeks. When we have done the workshops, we will be able to give you a quote and so on. And then they look at the next guys and they tell you the price up front on the website. Then you give them a call, you get a demo, first phone call, just see a little bit. Basically, as long as you don't, this will create bias. That getting the customer lean towards you.
Yeah.
So after this, it's basically just avoiding to destroy that picture of you being the better choice.
Yeah. That's good. I like it.
But then we come to the interesting part here, because we have always been pretty slim sales organization, because sales or selling is the easy part. Delivering is the hard part.
Yeah.
So what we really have been working on is finding smart ways of packaging such a big and complex product. How do we create these packages in a way where they are limited but not limiting?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say we have solved it yet, but we have definitely been taking some important steps in these 7 years.
Yeah. This sounds amazing. So let's just unpack that a bit more. What's unique about your business model, as in what you've evolved over this time?
Yeah. So what I would say is that starting this journey so early have meant that we have had quite a few of our customers that jumped on board like 7 years ago. and now have evolved into like real businesses. They were very small or very limited from the beginning, and have now become something big where it might be up to 50 employees. This have meant that the service that we provided for them in the beginning had to be scalable up to where they are now. So we, from being with or having customers that have done that journey, have taught us a lot about how do we, because we have basically two things that we work with. First, we have the like code IP, like product part, but then we also have all the settings and parameters, which we work a lot with within ERP. And we try to keep things we try to set it up in a way where they easily can expand into new areas.
And so what's unique about with putting your price up front like that? How can you put a price up front when, different customers have different project requirements? How does it work?
Well, we have this package delivery where you get a fixed price, but you also get a fixed project. This is what you get.
Fixed scope. I like it. Yeah.
Of course, we have the scenarios where the customers want a lot more. And in those cases, we're still stuck in the hour time and material kind of projects. And we try to, that's what I think we will do in the future, getting more of these package deliveries. We will try to have as little time as material as possible. We know there will still always be scenarios where there's no other way of charging the customer, but it doesn't really make sense to charge by the hour, because if you work really slow, do a poor job, you charge the customer more than if you fast and do a good job. So we have to change that. And it's also about how to use our own resources. The time in our organization that we can use is fixed. And if we have a system where we kind of promote being occupied with the customer as much as possible, and that's the way we get revenue, we will always be blocked to do other things, because we're going to be focused on customer projects instead of doing smart things.
I like this. So can you give us an example of maybe one or two packages, and how you've constructed those deals so that, customers can engage quickly?
Yeah, I think the most important one that we've been working on for the longest time is where we have finance quick start, because that is the generic thing that everyone needs. And then on top of that, we add on both first functionality for knowledge-based service companies, we try to call them, or IT consultant would be, or a IT consultancy firm would be the perfect match. So we built a implementation, like a fixed scope project, and the functionality for that. And that's because that's what we needed ourselves. So we now have an app in App Source for the functionality part, and a fixed scope implementation on our website. And we know it works as we are running it ourselves. Very good place to start.
I like it. I was talking to Kathrine from, hopefully I pronounce this right, CRM-Konsulterna, and they're one of your customers, and this is how, we came to be talking. And they're talking about a kind of a monthly subscription that they have with you, or that you offer them. So how does that work?
The subscription is, it's a license, of course, and everything that Microsoft's been changing to, but also also part of our services when it comes to support is monthly. And we have a concept where they can call us as much as they like to get assistance. And we think that we'd rather have the customer calling us if they're uncertain on how to use the systems and we can guide them in the right way, than having them calling us after when they made a mistake.
Yes, I like it.
Because then they're going to be frustrated. And since they pay a fixed amount every month, they will call us in advance because they know it's not going to cost them anything extra. So in the long run, I think we save time on that. Because we don't have to help them fix problems that normally takes a longer time. And we do let them call as much as they like to. And Of course, it's going to be a lot of calls the first couple of months when they're new to the system.
Yeah,
But then we're going to find a normal, okay level on phone calls over time, because the customers, they don't want to call us all the time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
They know they can pick up the phone anytime they like to. We're going to talk to them. We also know what they have problems with. So it's our support is in a way our part of our sales channel. We can guide them, and maybe you should buy this training. We have open online training a couple of times every fall and every spring, and we know what kind of issues our customers have, so we try to have trainings that guides them these problems. It could be VAT, it could be easy things for new customers, it could be more advanced things. I think it works pretty good, I think.
I like it. I like that model there of offering training 2 times a year live online, so that people can continue to develop their skills within the companies that they work for that are using Business Central. How do you see your business evolving? Like, what changes do you see you'll make over the next 12 months? You mentioned that you're wanting to move to a more or a less, open scope type work, or, billing based on time for money, and more of a package model. What are you seeing is going to change for you?
I would say the biggest change right now is that we're starting to build up a network with resellers. So we have Office 365 partners starting to sell our package delivery.
Wow, okay.
I mean, ERP could be quite complicated, and it's a little bit scary if you've not been working with it. So with this fixed packages, it's going to be a lot easier for someone that's pretty good on maybe Office 365 and that kind of issues to actually say and to the customer, you can also implement a ERP system from Microsoft.
I like it.
They can learn what's in the package. I think this is what going to impact us the most the coming year. But the advantage with Business Central is that even though we do a package implementation and we get the customer going, they can still do their customizations if they like to with this new technology. So I think we still have to do the traditional NAV business, building customizations and training and all that. But the next step is, of course, to add more packages to be able to reach more companies with this package delivery.
I like it.
But Business Central also gives us the opportunity of spreading our IP in a completely new way with the app source and so on. Before, when we have built something, we really needed to create contracts and agreements and everything before you could even have another partner try out what we have built. Now we can just publish it on AppSource and say, go ahead, try it out, see if you like it. If you don't use it. So we really look forward to seeing what AppSource will bring to this business, because it's definitely going to create some new opportunities.
Definitely. Now, Microsoft are making lots of changes to AppSource, but my understanding, the new things that are just coming out are focused on the CE side of Dynamics and also finance and operations. At the moment, what type of model are you using for Business Central in AppSource? Are you doing, I think there's 4 different models. You can just make an inquiry, which is, send you a lead if you like. Then there's the ability to deploy into an existing tenant, or there's this trial option where it's deployed into a demo environment that you have set up and running. What are you guys actually doing?
Deploy to production.
Right. So you deploy it into their environment.
Yeah. Or they basically do it themselves. But of course, they would be logged on to their sandbox environment while doing it. That's where it's going to be installed. But usually they deploy it to their production environment after been doing it in the sandbox.
Yeah, of course. Tell me how, when they deploy it to their sandbox as such, are you putting a time trial on that, 30 days or something? What other type of support do you wrap around them trialing it in their environment?
We actually don't want to interfere too much with them, because at this point we don't see that much traffic. So we want everyone to feel that they can go in and try out our apps and so on without us trying to push something onto them.
Yes, makes sense.
But if we see something which is really interesting, we might send them an email just asking, do you want any help? But we try to avoid interfering, trying to set up meetings and so on, because I think at this early stage, it might just scare people away.
Yeah. Interesting. And have you got any sales through that channel yet, or is this the new one you're developing over the next 12 months?
We definitely have some sales, but it's actually most towards our existing customer base.
Yeah.
And so we have quite a special situation in Sweden where there is an app called Swebase, which NAB is involved in, which is basically like a Swedish localization for Business Central.
Right.
And that is pretty well known and used by most partners.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we can see some traction around Swebase, but it's rather special.
Mm-mm-mm. So, do you intend that you'll sell outside of Sweden, as in with these solutions, like to other countries?
Definitely. That's going to be the next step. It's just that we wanted to get it up and running, try it out in Sweden, just see that we have good control of how this process is going to work further on with the new quicker cadence and release cadence that Microsoft have and so on.
Mm-mm. So tell me, when companies sell outside their own country, it means the support hours of the day, you might just do it business hours in Sweden. What happens when you start selling to, let's say, into the US time zone, or, even, let's say Australia, Southern Hemisphere? How do you plan to handle are you going to go to a 24/7 model of support, or are you going to have hours that only suit your country? How are you going to handle, a distributed time zone?
What we try to do now is to build support material that's on video and that's more automated and on demand, that we actually don't have to be at work. I think we're going to really see if we can do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because so far we try to avoid systems, solution, and customers that really need an answer within an hour or two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's how you build the systems already today. It's rare that we have a problem that has to be solved.
Gotcha. Yep.
So that is plan A.
Mm-hmm.
And if that doesn't work, we probably have to come up with something else.
Mm-hmm.
But we will try to stay in Sweden and work normal office hours from.
Yeah, makes sense.
But we also spend a lot of time on trying to build like usable functionality, or we spend a lot of time on ease of use that we haven't spent before. Because earlier, when we always had consultants involved in setting up the functionality that we deliver, we could have a much more generic approach on how we build it. But when someone who has never seen this functionality before is supposed to set it up themselves, we can't really have that as many options, because then they won't figure it out.
Yeah.
So one of the consultants in our product team said that we were done with one size fits no one.
I like that. One size fits nobody. It's great. How do you market your business at the moment? As in, just within Sweden, what's your marketing method or methodology?
Today, it's most in Sweden. We have our websites. So we're only doing inbound marketing. We have a lot of content. So the customer is actually calling us when they're ready to buy. That's actually a part of findings from this global road to repeatability as well. The customer is gathering information, and they don't really want to talk to a salesperson until they're ready to buy. So we try to provide them with all the information they possibly need on the websites, and when they're ready to buy, they will call us.
I like it.
And
so we're now setting up websites. We have it already for the apps that's in English.
Yep.
Try to make them more visible international, but we're not going to have outbound marketing.
Yeah, I like it.
And what we want to communicate through our websites, and what we sometimes hear from our customers, is that, oh, I like your website. You seem to think that this is the most fun thing in the world. because we really try to avoid looking corporate.
Okay, so how are you doing that? How are you kind of making it fun rather than corporate?
We want to communicate simplicity. We don't want to make it hard. We want to educate our customers as much as possible. The more they know about the system, the better it is. So like even though we offer free support, or not free support, but unlimited support, that's because we want them to be able to use their systems themselves. We don't want consultants stuck in our customers' organizations for years. We want to implement a system that helps the customer get more out of the people that's already there. We don't want to do their jobs.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. How do you see your reseller model working?
Well, we started a little bit this past spring for us. I don't know if that's fall for you.
I'm in London, so it's pretty much the same as you.
Then it's the same. So we started a little bit this spring. We were not really sure if it's gonna fly or not, what's gonna happen. But then after the summer here, it's taking off pretty good. We're doing one new customer every week at the moment, and that's pretty much the pace we wanted to have. I think we booked for another 5 weeks ahead, and the plan is to add. I think we have 4 resellers right now that's actively selling.
Wow, that's great.
The target is to have 10 resellers up and running before Christmas, and I think we're gonna have that.
Wow.
And during springtime, I think we're gonna do about 3 new customers a week.
Excellent. Wow, this is so good. So good. Must be exciting.
Yes, it is. It is. It's a lot of fun too to see that this actually works, to see how we also can help Office 365 partners selling Business Central, who's been something really scary for them. And all of a sudden they can add that to their portfolio, getting a really, really good cooperation.
I like this a lot. I like this. Johan, as CEO, how do you attract top talent to your business?
Yeah, we try to attract people that are talented, that we think that if they get in the right environment, they can become really good. So we're not looking for senior people. We're looking for talents.
Yeah.
Then we have an environment, I think, that is very open. We try to share and work in teams. We don't measure on individuals. We measure on teams.
Okay.
We measure on the company. We have that kind of goals. So we give a lot of responsibility quite early to people who join the company.
Yep.
And if you are willing to accept the responsibility and all the possibilities, people can grow. And I think that's something that makes people stay here, because there's always something new to learn if you're in this industry. And there's a lot of very skillful people working here. So even if you're very good at what you're doing, there's always somebody else that's better than you in another area that you can learn.
Yeah, I like it. Anton, what makes you stay at the company? What do you see culture and that keeps you loyal to the business?
I must say it's how we have been able to be in a constant movement of some people would call it change, others would call it chaos for the 7 years that I've been here. So even though Global Road to Repeatability is over since long, we're basically trying to figure out the same challenges still, and taking sometimes big steps, other days very small ones. But you grow with the company more than outgrowing the company, because it's moving so quickly. We are like 3-4-fold the amount of people as when I started. And as Johan mentioned, there is so much going on that there is plenty of room to grow. It's just a matter of how much you can cope with.
It's good. It's good. How do you determine career advancement within the company? Is that a Swedish concept?
Well,
it definitely is, but
as Anton mentioned before, we're not very corporate. There is no corporate ladder to climb. Try to avoid hierarchies as much as possible. So the career advancement is probably that you gain knowledge, learn to do other things, or doing things better. And that's probably the best way to describe what's going to happen when you work here. You're not going to be a manager and different levels and things like that.
Yeah. I like that.
But something that I think is quite attractive to those that have come from other companies that might be a little bit more corporate than we are, is that as we're moving along quite quickly, we constantly run into maybe you call it problems, change, opportunities, different things that we need to handle. And what we, instead of having like a management team that handles all these problems, we try to initiate various kinds of like virtual teams of the ones that we think are the best match to cope with this problem. Don't meaning that they need to solve it, but at least form a strategy for how to approach it. That means that we have, and in many areas, involved people that really didn't expect to like become a part of the management of the company, but as they are really good at maybe this specific area, they have been involved anyway. And that I think is something that people like being involved.
Okay, that makes sense. As a company, what's your engagement level like in the community? So outside the business, but in the Dynamics, Business Central community, what's your involvement level? And what are your views on it?
Try to be as involved as we can. I think that if we run into a problem, we try to make everybody else aware of it. If we find a solution, we try to share the solution in the same way as we expect other people to share solutions that they run into. And we think that if we kind of work together, even though we in some way are competitors, we'll get the customers out there to be happier. There will be more customers. So we try to be as open as possible and share as much as we can. We try to listen to other partners that in some areas are way ahead of us. So we don't really feel a pride to we have to do everything ourselves. If someone else done it before, and we try to learn from them.
I like it. What's your working relationship like with Microsoft, and what do you do to kind of foster a good working relationship with Microsoft?
Do what we're told.
I love it. That is awesome. So good.
I mean, we are Microsoft partners, so we're loyal to Microsoft on the market, of course. We don't agree with everything they do and everything they say. In some cases, we think that we have more experience and knowledge of their products than they have themselves. But at the same time, they are pointing out a direction where they want to go. That is very strategic, and it's driven by the competition on the global market and what all the customers on a global scale are asking for. So I think that there's a lot of people on Microsoft that is a lot smarter than we are. So if they say that this is where we're going with the products, I think that we should try to follow that path. And then we should do the best we can in that direction. I think that that's the best way to take advantage of this partnership. Of course, we try to tell them if there is something we don't understand. And in some scenarios, cases, we think they are wrong. Try to tell them in a polite way that, why are you doing like this? So I think that in some cases we've been managed to help, like in the community together. Sometimes we actually can't change Microsoft. In some cases, there's a reason why they're doing what they're doing, even though we might not understand it at the moment.
I like it. Before we get on to some quickfire questions to wrap up, is there anything either of you would like to add?
Not really. I don't know. What do you think, Anton?
No, I think we have caught most of what we're doing and so on.
Excellent. Sounds good. It's been a very enjoyable discussion. For quickfire questions, I'm basically going to give you 3 questions each. These are random questions. They're designed to not be work-related, but just out of interest. Johan, we'll start with you first of all.
Okay.
If you could visit any place in the world, where would it be and why?
Any place.
Any place.
Top of mind, like that would be Wyoming.
Okay.
Go riding, horseback riding.
Wow.
Like a cowboy.
Wow, interesting. What was the first thing you remember buying with your own money?
Oh, some Lego, I think.
Yeah, nice. Who's the worst boss you've ever had and why? Hopefully,
my worst boss. Actually, I haven't had that many bosses, but I was working a while in France. And I had a boss there that was very hierarchical, like that, and I had a hard time with that.
Yeah, that's understandable. Anton, here's your 3. Would you rather win a Grammy or Oscar and why?
Probably Oscar.
Any reason? Prefer the trophy?
I would just, that was my first thought. I think it sounds cooler.
Nice. What do you believe in despite having no proof of it?
I believe in the wind.
But every day you're on your yacht, though, surely you got proof of it, right? Final question. Are you a cat or a dog person? Do you prefer cats or dogs?
I like the psyche of a cat because you could always think that you own them, but in the end they will always do whatever they want to. But dogs are definitely more fun. So a hard time. But let's say cat then.
Nice. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Is anybody you recommend as a guest, that kind of works in the practice space? Anybody, it doesn't have to be in Sweden, it could be outside, that you'd recommend as a guest in future?
I would say Mark Stoit.
Yeah, I noted that name down. Can you do an introduction?
We could try to.
Maybe
I know he's a busy guy, but...
Via LinkedIn would be great. Via LinkedIn would be fantastic. Where does he live?
Vancouver.
Okay.
Vancouver, yeah.
Excellent. Before we go, if people want to reach out to you, are you guys on Twitter or LinkedIn? What's the best way for people to get in touch?
LinkedIn,
yeah.
Hey, thanks for listening and joining us on today's Dynamics 365 practice show. Keep in mind, I'm probably going to change the name of the show. We're probably going to become more focused around this, still on the practice side of things. We're going to focus more around the Power Platform, being that Dynamics 365, of course, sits on that. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/150. If you have a suggestion for a guest on a future podcast, make sure you reach out, let me know. LinkedIn Messenger, just, send me a private message that way. Perhaps do an introduction, or if you feel that you've got a story that you want to tell, something that kind of resonates with, day-to-day practice life, whether it's as a, functional consultant, architect, developer, whether it's running a practice, or, in sales, pre-sales and marketing, or even the CEO of a company. I'm open to all these type of roles, sharing experience, unique things that you do that make you who you are. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed today's show. Bye for now.